After successfully mediating ceasefire between Pakistan and India to prevent a dangerous escalation in a region, President Trump has said that he will work with both countries to see if they could arrive on any solution for Kashmir dispute. What is your take on it? How does the State Department see this issue? Is it bilateral for you, or it is open for any third-party mediation?
Well, look, what we're happy to see is a ceasefire. That's what we've said for the last couple of days now, and we want to encourage and see direct talks between the parties. We have been clear on that. Taking a step back, the president is a peacemaker, and we celebrate the advancement of peace, and we hope to see the ceasefire be maintained. And the president has also been clear in terms of the praise that he has given both prime ministers of both countries for the wisdom and the fortitude that they showed by choosing the path of peace. Hi. Again, my name is Tommy Pigott, Principal Deputy Spokesperson. For those that are just tuning in, I'm in again for the day for Spokesperson Tammy Bruce, who is traveling with the Secretary. So a few remarks up top, and then I'll be happy to take some questions. Under President Trump and Secretary Rubio's leadership, the United States is ushering in a new golden era for the American people. This week in the Middle East, the administration has so far announced landmark agreements worth hundreds of billions of dollars. These deals will expand American manufacturing, strengthen critical supply chains, and fuel innovation. Meanwhile, at the Select USA Investment Summit in Maryland this week, Deputy Secretary Landau joined the Department of Commerce to promote new opportunities for foreign investment that will directly benefit American workers and businesses. On the security front, Secretary Rubio traveled to Antalya, Turkey, for the NATO informal foreign ministers meeting, where he underscored the United States' commitment to strengthening our alliances and enhancing military readiness. As the Secretary stated, to better protect our alliance, defense production must rise, military readiness must improve, and burden sharing must be real. The United States looks forward to charting a course towards the 5% NATO defense spending target. From Turkey, Secretary Rubio will travel to Italy to accompany Vice President J.D. Vance for the inaugural Mass of His Holiness Pope Leo XIV. This sacred moment marks a time of spiritual unity for Catholics worldwide, and the Secretary will join the Vice President in this prayerful celebration. And finally, to further support regional stability, the President also affirmed the United States' support for a peaceful future in Syria. As the President said, he is ordering the cessation of sanctions against Syria in order to give them a chance at greatness. From revitalizing America's economy to forging pathways to peace, the Trump administration is delivering on its promises. The results are clear, and more is yet to come. And with that, I'll take some questions. Yes.
Hi, it's Helen Nickmeyer with the AP. Did the Trump administration on its Gulf trip raise the detentions of rights activists in Saudi Arabia? Did it ask for American citizens and American residents in Saudi Arabia to be allowed freed from travel bans and allowed to return home? And did it raise relatedly the issue of alleged UAE support to the RSF during the UAE stop? And separately, let
me just address some of that. Just a lot there already to unpack. I'm not going to discuss private diplomatic conversations, but what I can say is that when U.S. citizens have raised the challenges they experience with exit bans, we have provided consular assistance and worked to ensure they receive fair and transparent treatment. That's what I have to offer there. When it comes to, again, not going to talk about private diplomatic conversations, but when it comes to those reports, we have heard of those reports when it comes to the RSF. Both the RSF and Sudanese armed forces have used weapons acquired from foreign actors against the civilian population and have committed human rights violations and abuses. Supplying arms to any of the belligerents prolongs the conflict and heightens the risk of further destabilization of Sudan and the region. The United States calls for an end to all external support to the warring parties and urges all our partners to press for a comprehensive cessation of hostilities and increased humanitarian access.
Okay. I've got a second question, but I'll observe that that the U.S. actually has sanctions on the UAE for UAE companies for support to the RSF. And separately, there's progress on the Gaza Humanitarian Fund Foundation says it's making progress with Israel on resuming aid. in Gaza. Can you answer, explain what the U.S. role in that is, the U.S. government role, what funding or support it's going to give, and if it's concerned by humanitarian groups' criticism that this violates humanitarian law by allowing a combatant, Israel, to control aid delivery to civilians?
Well, look, one of the fundamental principles of this plan is that it is independent, meant to get humanitarian aid into Gaza. And we welcome the Gaza Humanitarians Foundation's official launch yesterday. The Secretary also just spoke to this as well. We have seen what has happened in Gaza because of the hostilities that Hamas bears sole responsibility for. We have seen this announcement. We welcome creative solutions to get aid in there. But as the Secretary also just said, we need to see aid enter Gaza in a way that does not allow Hamas or other terrorists to take that aid. So we welcome this creative solution. We welcome the Foundation's announcement. I refer you to the Foundation itself for further details on this program.
So, could I follow up?
Yes, Andrea.
I want to ask you about Secretary Lando's trip out to Dulles to greet the South African refugees and State Department decision-making about the genocide designation that's under consideration, which the President had mentioned as genocide is happening there. There is a lot of evidence, public evidence, that is in open sources of farmers, white farmers not wanting to come, of black killings exceeding by large measure white killings in the crime problem that they do have, and that there is no white genocide to justify this kind of extraordinary accelerated refugee process for white South Africans. On the same day that temporary protective status was withdrawn from Afghans, thousands of them, many of whom are sponsored by U.S. military veterans because they were their translators. So can you unpack that and the disparity in treatment, and what is the status of any kind of genocide investigation on what is happening to white South Africans?
Well, the President has been very clear, the concerns that he has in terms of South Africa. He has expressed those publicly and often. When it comes to temporary protected status, I refer you to DHS. That was always meant as a temporary program, a temporary benefit, but I refer you to DHS for more questions on that. Again, when it comes to the new arrivals that we saw, what we saw was a president who identified a priority that we fulfilled here at the State Department. And what's also clear is that the refugees that arrived met the same standard that is across the board for refugees. They met that standard. So what we're seeing here is a president who has been clear about his concerns with South Africa, and the State Department has acted on that, and the refugees that we saw met the standard in statute for refugees.
The standard may be uniform, but the speed is not. We have people, Afghans, who are still in refugee camps since the fall of the Afghanistan regime, who are waiting to hear about SIV status or waiting to hear about refugee status, who have worked with the U.S. They are in Doha, they are in Albania, they're in Pakistan for years waiting to get the kind of treatment. And that is not a DHS function, that is a State Department function.
Well, on that SIV front, SIV interviews continue. That process continues. What we have seen, again, is a president being very clear about concerns he has regarding South Africa and the treatment of Afrikaners in South Africa.
Is
and
there
this
data to back that up?
Oh,
Or is it all anecdotal from advisors?
well, this has been a concern that the president's had for a very long time. He's been clear about that for years, about the abuses we are seeing in South Africa. So this is a priority outlined by the president. The president then directed the State Department and others to implement that priority, and we're seeing the State Department fulfill those executive orders.
Is there a formal genocide investigation underway at the State Department?
Like, again, the president has spoken to this. I refer you to his comments. Nothing further to add on that front.
But Tommy, just to follow up, I mean, what evidence can you share today from the podium to underscore there's a genocide going on in South Africa against the white?
Well, look, the president, again, has been very clear on this. I refer you to his comments. When it comes to the treatment of the refugees that we saw arrive, that is that same standard in statute for refugees.
Yeah, but
and there
what
were
evidence do you
harrowing stories that they told about the treatment that they suffered. So what we are seeing is a problem that has been identified by the president and the State Department fulfilling those executive orders. Again, we have heard these stories that have come through. The refugees there met the same statute for refugees that is uniform and standard, and that'll continue to implement the president's priorities in this regard.
I just have one more question on this.
Sure.
You said they met the same statute, which indicates that there are others who are in the same exact boat that they are in right now around the world. So why was it a decision to prioritize these refugees over other refugees? And was there any racial element to this because they're white?
I want to just, on that first part, what I mean there is there's a certain standard that's outlined. There's certain criteria that needs to be met. That's what I meant in terms of that standard. So there's a certain standard that is applied when someone's applying for a refugee status in this program. And so that standard is uniform across the board. So I want to clarify that aspect of it. And again, the president has been very clear about the actions we are seeing in South Africa, the fact that this was a priority laid out by the president, and the State Department is fulfilling that priority.
And you don't want to speak to any racial reasoning for allowing them to come in being white refugees versus not allowing any Latino or people of color coming into the U.S. as refugees this year?
Fundamentally, what we have seen are harrowing stories from those refugees. They have met the standard that is applicable for those refugees. We have seen that process play out. This has been a priority for the president. And again, just looking at this scenario, we have heard harrowing stories here. That is what is at issue here. The fact that these people have gone through certain conditions. We have seen that standard for refugees apply. They have gone through this process. It's a priority from the president, and that's why we're seeing the actions that we're taking.
Follow up on that.
All right.
Thanks, Tommy.
I think also we're asking because the determination of genocide is normally something that is determined by the Secretary of State. So just want to clarify, are you saying that this is now something that is determined by the President of the United States? And that's why I think Andrew was asking if there is an investigation in this building into whether that designation for genocide is being determined in this building still, or if something has changed.
Well, again, as I said, the president's been very clear about the issues that we have regarding South Africa. He's been very clear on that continually. I have nothing further to add at this point.
But it's a legal determination. It's not a determination made by the President of the United States. That's why we're asking.
Again, I address this issue in terms of the president's been very clear about the issues we've seen from the State Department's perspective. There's a priority laid out by the president. We are fulfilling that priority. And again, the stories that we have heard are harrowing. And so we're seeing the fact that these people have met that same standard for refugees, and we're seeing the State Department fulfill the executive orders of the president.
Did they also get, did you also look through their social media files? I mean, because there's some, to look for anti-Semitism, for instance, for some of the people who came?
Well, as a matter of general policy, we're unable to comment on specifics of that nature, and so I'm not going to do that from the podium here.
Can I ask you a different, I just have a totally different question before we get on to the Middle East.
All right.
I had a question on Cuba. The deputy foreign minister is saying that there's no Chinese spy base on the island and is dismissing some recent satellite images. I just wonder what your assessment is.
We will not talk about intelligence matters from the podium, so at this point, nothing to add on that. No comment. Yes.
Thank you, Tommy. Going back to Gaza on the issue of the aid, of course. Now, for all the months before the January 19 agreement, aid was going in, even in the most intensive fighting that occurred over a period of more than a year. Aid was still going in. What has happened since March 2nd until now that this allows aid to go in? Do we have like a timetable? And isn't it really ironic that the Palestinians, have demand a measure of basic human right, the right to eat, on the day, the 15th of May, which is the 77th anniversary of their catastrophe? We still have to talk and debate whether they have a right to eat or not.
Well, what I can tell you what's happened is there has been this proposal to get aid into Gaza in a creative way that makes sure Hamas cannot steal it. That is what I can tell you has happened, and that the United States has endorsed that effort to get aid in there. So that is what has happened, and what I can also tell you what happened is on October 7th, Hamas coming in, committing atrocities. Hamas bears sole responsibility for this conflict, but as the Secretary just described, we care about the humanitarian situation in Gaza. That's why we have endorsed this measure to get aid in there. That's why we have seen this be a constant topic of conversation here at the podium and elsewhere. And what we are seeing from the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation's announcement is a creative way to get in there and make sure aid is reaching the people that actually need it.
Do we have a timetable for this? I mean, can we say like in 2 weeks, 3 weeks, a month? the aid can go in?
Well, look, what we're looking to is that delivering of aid by the end of the month, but ultimately I refer to the foundation for more details on the specifics of that.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you. One follow-up on Gaza, and I will also ask on Syria. Can you provide us more details about who will, fund this new foundation, Gaza Foundation, and what role the U.S. will actually play in the aid delivery?
Well, ultimately, I refer you to the foundation for more details on the specifics of that nature. As the Secretary has said, we welcome this announcement to get aid in there, but I refer you to the foundation for more details.
And on Syria, Secretary Rubio met Syrian Foreign Minister Al-Shaiban and Turkish Foreign Minister Hakan Fidan today in Antalya, Turkey. You just shared a readout of the meeting. Secretary Rubio said right after the meeting that the U.S. Will start with initial waivers instead of fully lifting the sanctions. Can you provide more details on when and under what conditions these sanctions might be fully lifted? And, will the U.S. do anything to contribute to the reconstruction of Syria? Was this discussed during the meeting too?
Look, what I can say, as the Secretary said during those comments, is that this is something that had been discussed, worked on, options considered for many weeks leading up to this announcement, and that we are going to be implementing what the President has announced as an administration. In terms of exact timelines, I have nothing further to preview on that front now, except for to say the fact that we are moving now to implement this announcement, and this was something that was discussed, as the Secretary said himself, for many weeks leading up to this announcement. Sure.
Can we come back to the Gaza Foundation? Just to try to get some clarity on this. So you're talking about this being, the US has endorsed it, you're praising this creative thinking. Whose plan is it? Who is the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation?
Well, the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation is a foundation. I mean, I refer you to them for more details on their leadership. But
should we call this a U.S. plan? Is it an Israeli plan? The UN has said they're not going to be involved in it. So, who do we credit with this creative thinking?
Well, again, as I said earlier, this is an independent plan in terms of making sure that aid reaches the people that need it. As the Secretary said, we endorse this plan in the sense that we want to see creative solutions. As he also said, if there are better options to get aid in there, we'd like to see those options provided. But ultimately, again, as he said, our priority here is making sure that aid gets to the people that need it in a way where that aid is not stolen by Hamas or other terrorists.
When you say endorse, it sounds like kind of moral support, but is the U.S. providing any funding for this?
Like, I refer you to the foundation for details on their funding, but
why is that down to the foundation?
I have nothing to preview.
I'm asking the State Department if the State Department is providing any funding for this.
Nothing to preview at this time on that front.
So all you're doing is providing endorsement.
Well, look, as the Secretary said again, we welcome this creative solution. We see the plans moving forward there. They announced and detailed those yesterday. If I have my timing correct on that, refer you to them for more details.
And there's been reports that David Beasley, who's former World Food Programme head, is going to be involved. Can you speak to that? Anything about the leadership of this foundation?
Well, when it comes to Dave Beasley would be fantastic. So we're hoping he comes on board as well. He accepted the Nobel Prize on behalf of the World Food Programme when he was leading the organization, and he's one of the most respected humanitarian leaders in the world.
And sorry, would he lead the humanitarian conversations for the State Department with Israel and Gaza? Is that
nothing further besides what I just provided there at this time?
You're saying he would be good, but you don't have any information on him being involved?
Again, this is the data that we have here in terms of David Beasley would be fantastic. So we're hoping that he comes on board, but nothing further to add at this time.
Is it possible on a security-related question?
I'm just, since he had the early one, we'll go over here.
Thank you. On Iran, today the president said the U.S. and Iran are very close to a deal and said that Tehran has already sort of agreed to terms. Can you elaborate on that? And is there another round of direct, indirect negotiations scheduled to get this over the finish line?
Not to comment on private diplomatic conversations nor negotiate through the media when it comes to the details of these negotiations, these talks. What I can say, again, as we've reiterated here, is that the president has been clear that Iran can never have a nuclear weapon. The talks have been described as constructive by the participants in them. And so, again, Iran can never have a nuclear weapon. And the president has been clear he wants to see diplomacy. He wants to see a diplomatic solution here. Yes.
Tommy, can you speak to the remaining meetings for Secretary Rubio? in Turkey and in Europe. I think you just mentioned his trip on Sunday, or the trip regarding the Vatican. But in terms of discussions about Ukraine, do you have anything to preview or to share in terms of will he engage with Ukraine's foreign minister and the other officials, even if Minister Lavrov, or even if the Russian government does not have a presence at the secretary's level in terms of officials engaged in Turkey at this point?
Well, the secretary just spoke to this a little while ago. I refer you to his comments on that.
Okay, thanks.
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you, Tommy. A question on Syria. After the president's meeting with the Syrian interim president and today's meeting between Secretary Rubio and Syrian foreign minister, do you recognize this Syrian interim authority now, or you still hold your previous position on that?
Well, look, what we want to see, and taking a step back, is Syria take certain actions that were detailed in the readout the White House put out. We've also seen the Secretary discuss this in terms of movement forward. I don't necessarily want to get ahead of where that movement might be, but ultimately just to reinforce and reinforce the fact that, as the President said, we want to give Syria a chance at greatness, and we are working now to implement what the President announced in his speech in Saudi Arabia.
And Secretary Rubio was touching the importance of protecting the human rights of all Syrians. We have seen this interim authority were violating many international laws, and they were even harassing the Jewish people and the Kurdish and the Christians. What's your position on these minority rights in Syria? After you met with the Syrian foreign minister and after the president's meeting with Ahmad al-Shara?
Well, again, not to discuss the private diplomatic conversations that were happening in that regard. We have been clear in regards to any nation that we have certain expectations, and there have been expectations that the President has communicated to Syria regarding a whole host of actions. And again, those actions that we're hoping that they take are hand in hand with this announcement in terms of lifting sanctions, that opportunity to achieve greatness. So it's the cessation of sanctions, but also the actions we're hoping to see them take would then contribute to that long peace, that prosperity that the President and Secretary want to see for the entire region.
Thank you.
Yes.
Going back to Ukraine and Russian talk, is Secretary going to Istanbul as a Secretary of State or as a National Security Advisor? And is there any chance that he's going to meet with Russian delegation?
Well, again, the Secretary spoke to that just recently. I refer you to his comments on that. Nothing further to that. Yes.
Thank you. A high-level meeting of trade ministers from major countries is being held today on Jeju Island, South Korea, ahead of the APEC summit to be held in Gyeongju, South Korea, in October and November. Is there a possibility that additional U.S. and South Korea follow up the U.S. and China by rather additional talks will be held too?
Well, what I can say is that the President has been clear he wants to strike deals that benefit the American people. And when we see that, that also benefits our relationships with other countries. We're seeing benefits that help both in our bilateral relationship and that. So nothing to preview on a specific agreement, but I will say I think this is a testament to the fact of the President's agenda, the fact that we have seen historic deals that have been brokered by the President that are already yielding results for the American people. We've seen inflation come down, gas and grocery prices falling. We've seen investment entering the United States. Of course, the major announcements we also see in terms of investment in the Middle East this week, but also in general, we're seeing a flood of investment into the United States. We're seeing that benefit for the American worker. And again, by putting that American worker first, the American people first, that leads to deals that benefit both countries in the sense of trade agreements. So again, we've seen countries come to the table and the President's the best deal maker in the world.
Quick follow-up, the ceasefire talks between Russia and Ukraine failed. And do you predict that the meeting between Putin and Zelensky to take place soon? Well,
I'm not going to speculate on that at all.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you, Tommy. A couple of questions. One on Syria. First, I want to understand, does lifting sanctions on Damascus come up with any conditions? And secondly, on May 17, the Arab League is scheduled to be held in Baghdad, Iraq. Does the Secretary Rubio attend the meeting?
Nothing to preview on that second question. Again, on the first, let us reiterate what the president said. This is about giving Syria an opportunity for greatness. And there have been actions that have been communicated by the president. It was detailed in the readout that the White House put out, have been detailed again from this podium in terms of actions that Syria should take. And those actions that we hope to see them take go hand in hand with that opportunity for greatness. That if they take those actions, we could see a long peace, prosperity, again, something that the president wishes for the entire region.
Syria.
Yep.
Thank you very much. After successfully mediating ceasefire between Pakistan and India to prevent a dangerous escalation in a region, President Trump has said that he will work with both countries to see if they could arrive on any solution for Kashmir dispute. What is your take on it? How does the State Department see this issue? Is it bilateral for you, or it is open for any third-party mediation?
Well, look, what we're happy to see is a ceasefire. That's what we've said for the last couple of days now, and we want to encourage and see direct talks between the parties. We have been clear on that. Taking a step back, the president is a peacemaker, and we celebrate the advancement of peace, and we hope to see the ceasefire be maintained. And the president has also been clear in terms of the praise that he has given both prime ministers of both countries for the wisdom and the fortitude that they showed by choosing the path of peace.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you very much, Tommy. Me? Thank you very much, Tommy. One on Pakistan and one on Afghanistan, please. Both the leaders in Pakistan and India, in Pakistan, he is known as a fake prime minister, and in India, the prime minister is known as a big hater of Muslim, Christians, and Sikhs. Is the State Department at all worried that now when they have extended the deadline till 18th, after that, any nuclear thing is being discussed seriously or not?
Well, again, what we are happy to see is a ceasefire, and that's where our focus remains, the direct talks we want to see. And again, the president has been clear praising both prime ministers for choosing the path of peace.
Second one on Afghanistan, please. Afghan girls are now without education for 3 years. Has the president or the secretary at all entrusted in that country's girls to get educated and work towards their children not becoming terrorists again? Something like that?
Well, look, we've spoken at this before in other avenues. What I can say, again, is that when it comes to our national interests, when we're looking at our national interests, we're going to continue putting America first, but nothing further to add in terms of that question there.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Thank you very much.